My name is Stephen Watmore. I tend to be a very inquisitive fellow. I like to know how things work. I like to know what causes things to behave a certain way, and what. I don't just want the answer; I want the why. So, say, for example, you discover right here on the planet a temporal anomaly, meaning space and time. Not only where, but when. And you discover that. How do you go about researching it, or identifying it and examining it, and publishing the fact that it exists? And it's a very valid question, because you have to understand what a temporal anomaly is. And as an example, in this particular instance, I can actually see us interacting with this thing in strange behavior in how objects enter the field and how objects exit the field, and how objects enter the field and exit the field, objects enter the field and exit the field, and enter, exit object. Strange behavior that is captured. So clearly there is some sort of thing, I guess would be the most scientific explanation, going on. So where do they go? When do they go? When they enter the field and then they pop out on the other side, where did they spend that time? From our reference point, where did they spend our time? And what time are they spending on the other end? So how do you examine, how do you research, analyze this? Well, clearly, to me, the obvious or the almost intuitive gut feeling is you don't go stand in the middle of the damn thing. Because we're talking about a temporal anomaly. Where do they go? Well, if you go stand in the middle of the thing, probably not a wise idea, especially if you plan on returning for dinner. Or maybe you return for dinner somewhere else. So how would you examine something like that? And is the observer effect an important point here? Do you change its behavior by observing it? Well, if my theory about how it got created in the first place is true, there is a relationship between, a phenomenon with respect to travel, using energy as a travel basis, and somehow overloading that and basically blowing up that, like right here, blowing up that travel in the middle. And then the references to the big objects, God as an example, and consciousness, and the field. If that is in fact true, then in theory, all you need to do is maintain or keep in mind your reference point via association, meaning think about it. And the reason why I say that is because guess what? It's right there. Yes, we see some anomalies where things are occurring that shouldn't be occurring, but in all other ways, it seems to be a relatively standard hillside, volcano side. All right, so if my theories are correct, one, if you don't recognize it as for what it is, you interact with that hillside with no problem. You have no idea what's there. If you recognize it, you then therefore enabled it to actually interact with you. So standing in the middle of it, probably not a good idea for me. Anybody else who hears this file going and stand in the middle of that file, in the middle of that hill, probably not a good idea, because you recognize that it's a temporal anomaly. And therefore you're probably going to get yourself into trouble as to when and where you're eating dinner. But can you just maintain your association to your current reference point, meaning, hey, I'm looking down at the hotel, and that's where I came from, and that's when I came from. So you literally walk through the field and not even matter. Risky proposition. Not something I would want to validate myself without further examination. So I think the key to identifying and researching something like this would be, one, understanding it. understanding it so to a precise level. Meaning, when things enter one side, when do they come out the other side? How often do they come out the other side? How often does this cycle repeat? Is it periodic? Is there some sort of variance? Meaning a frequency of oscillations within a frequency of oscillations? Exactly how can we identify where the boundaries are? Do they back up? Do the objects come out and go back in? All these type of things, monitoring and researching this thing would give you a big kind of leg up in exactly what it is, how it behaves. And then, still a fairly risky proposition, it's kind of like jumping in that space capsule, stepping in the middle of this damn thing. But the thing is, and human beings are like this for some reason, I don't know why. If this thing behaves in certain ways and is consistent, then you can predict it and use it to do things you probably shouldn't be doing. So if, for example, this thing repeats every 2.5 minutes, can you use that to literally travel forward or backwards 2.5 minutes? In theory, yes. But how? Again, I'm not going to be the first one to step in the middle of that thing. Let some other brave new soul do that. And I'll be the one. I'm the one, putting a tracker on them and saying, "Here, go." And hopefully, the tracker continues to beep, beep, beep as it flies by. Or is it as easy as attaching a rope to your spelunker who's wandering around in the forest up there? Says, "Well, you're anchored. There you go. Here's your rope. And we'll just pull you out when you're done." Who knows? I haven't got a clue. I've just discovered a little while ago. There's some interesting other things going on up there that are all observable. Now, say somebody inadvertently wanders into that field. Inadvertently being, quote, air quotes. Saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm a brave person. I'm just going to wander in the field and hopefully I end up somewhere. Or end up somewhere." Being a very, very smart individual with, full of arrogance and vigor, I'm just going to measure the amount of time, measure the amount of seconds, and then I jump in, and X number of years later I pop out when. Well, you better be fairly secure in your arrogance, your ego, because if you guess wrong, you may never have a when. My name is Wadi. Can you hear me? Please hit that subscribe button. I'd like to continue my research, and hopefully YouTube can find and inform me. My name is Wadi. I think you heard me. The preceding audio and video cast is sole property of Stephen Watmore. It has been developed independent of any government, organization, business, or university learning institute. If you wish to use this information or discuss this information, please contact me, Stephen Watmore, via the comments of the YouTube playlist, and I'll be more than happy to discuss this with you. If you would like to make donations towards continued research in this area and other areas, please contact me via the comments list, and I'd be more than happy to accept them. My name is Wadi. Can you hear me?